Wait, I have a question. Why is his nose gone? Wow. The Sphinx. Wait, what happened to her nose? Why is her nose cut off?
So at this point, are we not tired of the lies? So iShowSpeed went to Egypt and he was being shown all of the statues and things like that. And Darren Watkins asked this lady, why is his nose broken off? And why is a lot of the statues' noses are gone? And she came up with this crazy explanation as to why they have no noses. But we all know why their noses are broken off. Because a certain people group went over there and they did not want people to know the true history of our world and who the people were during that time. And so they hit off the noses because noses give a complete distinction of a person's ethnicity and where they come from. So the easiest thing to do is to knock off their nose. That's why when you go to all of these historic places, you see a lot of statues with no noses. They do not want you to know in simple terms that they were black people, that they had these types of noses. They don't want you to know that. She comes up with this grand explanation as to why they did.
Wait, what happened to her nose? What happened to her nose? Why is her nose cut off? Did it fall off, chat?
Everyone asks me when you just come in here, why Sphinx is without nose? It's famous from Egypt and some countries. Who broke a nose? The history of man Makrizi from Islamic era, right inside his book and say, a man his name Sa'im al-Dahr do this. But why? Why Sa'im al-Dahr do this? Because he won't be proof. For some people, it is just a statue, just stone, not God. For this, he just broke a nose and say he can protect himself. What he do? He just a stone.
Oh, so he was trying to prove that the statue was not a god.
Not a God.
So he broke the nose.
Mm-hmm. Sphinx is a one piece, but two parts. For this lion head is human, but not normal human. It's royal human. And we think this is the face of King Khafre, the owner of the second pyramid. The length of the statue is 72 meters, height is 20 meters. For this is a big antique for all the world.
Wow, okay.
Thank you.
There is a video trending right now that has a lot of people asking questions. Ancient Egyptian statues, many of them without noses. A popular streamer recently visited Egypt and noticed this during a tour. He asked a simple question: why are so many of these statues missing their noses? The answer he was given didn't convince a lot of people, and that's when the conversation online starts to grow. By the way, guys, my name is Glory and welcome back to the channel. This channel is not here to promote violence or misinformation, but it's for educational purposes. So before assumptions start flying, before conclusions are drawn, let's look at what is actually behind us and why this topic is trending online.
iShowSpeed is currently in Egypt, and during a visit to one of the museums, he asked a simple question that turned out to be pretty revealing. Why do so many of the statues have broken noses? The answer is actually telling. When Europeans arrived and discovered these ancient civilizations, they intentionally broke the noses off statues, especially the ones with distinctly African features, broad noses, clearly African-looking faces. That's why so many of these statues are missing their noses today. Sometimes you have to play a little dumb. Ask an innocent question, just to see if people will reveal the truth or expose themselves. Of course, the chances of getting the full, honest history are slim, but there's something clever about the way he asked. It gave plausible deniability while still prompting a real answer. That said, the rest of his trip hasn't exactly been smooth. I just watched him nearly fall through someone's ceiling, and it's hard not to notice how uneasy he seems overall. He's moved through multiple African countries before, tripping, laughing, and generally carefree, but this Egypt trip is giving a very different energy. The stress and tension are visible, and it's clear he's navigating this part of the world with a lot more caution than in his past travels. Even with some beautiful moments along the way, the trip hasn't had that same playful, effortless vibe.
Let's watch this man explain iShowSpeed on the nose broke.
Let's get a shot.
Come to the nose.
Wait, what happened to her nose? What happened to her nose? Why is her nose cut off?
That's why we had recently a new offline stone.
Did it fall off, chat?
Everyone asks me when you just come here, why Sphinx is without nose? It's famous from Egypt and some countries. Who broke a nose? The history of man Makrizi from Islamic era. Write inside his book and say, a man his name Sa'im al-Dahr do this. But why? Why Sa'im al-Dahr do this? Because he won't be proof. For some people, it is just a statue, just stone, not God. For this, he just broke a nose and say he can't protect himself. What he do? He just a stone.
Oh, so he was trying to prove that the statue is not a god.
Not a God.
So he broke the nose.
First of all, I was watching iShowSpeed's stream this morning, and it was two different stories. One from the guy telling Speed, oh, the nose has broken, and the other one from another lady telling another story. It's two different stories. Okay, the men told him, okay, they broke the statue's nose because to show everybody, to show the people, this man right here, this person right here is not a god. He's just a statue. And the lady say it was because Tukin will fight it, they just broke his nose to show him it's nothing for equality. Show equality. But man, when y'all gonna stop, bro? When y'all gonna stop telling people those stories, those fake stories? When? This person why he's black. He's a black person, bro. He's literally a black person. Why the hell you gonna tell me you gonna broke his nose to showing everybody he's not a god? Don't lie to me like that. Don't lie to us like that. This person is black. Look at his face. Look at his face, bro. They broke his nose. Hey, y'all. That's not the real reason you should break the status nose. That's a lie. That's a lie. Because y'all don't wanna let black people know where they come from. Y'all just wanna tell black people, oh, you use booty scratches. The booty scratches just came from a boat. That's it, right? When y'all gonna stop telling that shit? And also black people, we just keep believing it. We keep believing this. Y'all need to stop, bro. We're in 226.
So iShowSpeed is currently in Egypt, and he went to the museum and he asked a question. He asked, why do all the statues have their noses broken? They have their noses broken because when the Europeans arrived and they found the civilization, they actually broke the very African-looking noses. They broke the noses. So if you look at a lot of the statues, they have their noses broken because the noses were typically African noses, and they broke the noses. And iShowSpeed asked, why do they have their noses broken? And the curator was stumbling, and she said, oh, it's because it's the area of weakness. And then the second reason is when the Europeans arrived, they broke the noses to erase African history because it's all in the nose, isn't it? They broke them. They broke the noses in the hope that it will never be discovered that they were actually African. And actually, if you look at the Egyptian history, the 23rd and the 24th dynasty is never really recorded because they were Nubian. The kings were Nubian. The pharaohs were actually Nubian. They were so black. And the other thing they don't talk about is about the Sudanese, the Sudanese pyramids. Nobody ever talks about the Sudanese pyramids. And because this is something that is not meant to be advanced when it comes to Africans.
Why are the noses broken? This is one of the frequently asked questions that I usually get in a tour. Well, to answer this question, we need to discuss it in terms of Egyptology and archaeology. We have many theories, actually. Some of them make sense, others do not really make sense, and I'll start with the theories that doesn't make sense. The most important one mentions that the successors of the kings, they come to the statues and then they break the noses on purpose. Well, why? I believe that it doesn't make any sense, because think about it. We are talking about people who inherited the throne and they have the royal blood. This is how you maintain legitimacy. You need to be politically legitimate to be capable of ruling the country. So we are talking about people who broke the noses of their parents and grandparents. That's not happening. It doesn't make sense. In addition to this, all the ancient Egyptians believed that the soul would come and identify the facial features of the statue. Just in case the mummy did not survive, the soul would be capable of inhabiting this body within which he can resurrect in afterlife. And that's why, rather than paying for the gym, they were just paying for the artisan to do themselves statues with biceps and triceps and chest muscles and all this power. Even if in real life they had bellies and large noses, they were not doing that. So that's one of the theories. The second theory, which makes so much sense, is all about the protruding parts out of the masonry of the statue while carving it out. I'm glad that you are really enjoying this, but you can just leave some comments if you have any questions and press on like and also share it with your friends who probably have the same questions. Usually we have specific parts of the statue that are usually weak, like not only the noses, but this is the most famous one. But we're talking about the noses, the beards, the ears, the nemes headdress, the pointed ends of the nemes, the tips of the fingers of the hands and legs, and also the necks. Here we can see the broken beard, parts of the nemes, the noses, and parts of the ears. Over here you can see the broken tips of the fingers. But usually noses are the things that grabs the attention of the people, and I don't really know why. Maybe because of what happened to the Sphinx at Giza. And this is another misconception, by the way. Maybe you were taught that it's broken because of Napoleon. That's not true, because we have records by the travelers who came when Napoleon was in Egypt, and when they drew the Sphinx, they drew it with a nose.
Here is what historians and researchers generally agreed on. Many ancient Egyptian statues lost their noses over time for different reasons, some from natural erosion, some during invasions and colonial periods, and some were intentionally damaged. In ancient belief systems, damaging the face, especially the nose, was thought to remove a statue's spiritual power or identity. So yes, these are explanations, but the reason this keeps trending is because African history has often been taught in fragments without full cultural or spiritual context, and this conversation resonates with a lot of Black Americans because questions about African history, identity, and legacy have often been dismissed or simplified for generations. When history feels incomplete, people don't feel uninformed, they feel disconnected. So here's the real question. Do you think you've been taught ancient African history in full or only in the parts that were easiest to explain? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please, if you made it thus far, like the video, share it, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.